Hello, welcome to Locally Sourced. We were here last week and we spoke about recycling and reducing your food waste. But today we're going to talk a little bit more about special waste that you have in your home, items that you may not know what to do with, if you recycle them or if you throw them out, and how you do that. So, just a reminder, I'm Victoria DiLonardo, the Recycling Coordinator at the Health Department, and I'm here with Robert Morris, the Director of Environmental Health Services at the Health Department. So, like we spoke about last week, any waste that we have in our home, we want to make sure we follow the 4 R's. We want to reduce the amount that we use, reuse what we have, recycle what we can't reuse and what we can't reuse, and then recover what we cannot recycle. So the first type of item I want to talk about today is a hazardous waste, household hazardous wastes. So that would include household cleaners and other some items in your home. So for household cleaners, when we talk about the 4 R's with cleaners, the first thing we want to do is reduce the amount that we bring into our home. So the ways we can do that are by using alternative cleaners. So up on the screen, we should have a list of different household cleaners that you can create using things that you already have in your home. There's vinegar and baking soda, lemon juice. Those are all pretty popular items. So besides what's here, you can go on to Pinterest, and there's a lot of places where you can find on Pinterest, on Google.
So our whole lives, we were brought up to buy the products, we sold the products, watched the commercials. This is the best product. Now you have natural cleaners. Do they work as well? They do.
They do. As things progressed back in the I guess, when chemicals really started, the chemical cleaners started becoming popular, it was a great new thing. But these vinegar-based and baking soda, they work very well. And they do get your house clean, and they don't smell. And you don't have a chemical smell either. So once we bring these into your home, you have the chemical cleaners. We have stains, which are oil-based paints, and sometimes like strippers, like for wallpaper or for paint. Once we get those items, you want to dispose of them properly. And it's very important that we dispose of them properly is because they are toxic and they're hazardous to our health. So if we either, pour them down the drain or if we put them in the garbage, sometimes they'll make their way into the water stream. And that will adversely affect us. That will adversely affect animals and other plant life.
So I have all these items in my home, and I can't use them up for whatever. I finished my job, or I finished the cleaning job, I finished stain, I have extra stain. What should I do with that material?
So if you don't have a friend or a relative or a neighbor who can use these items, who can safely use these items, what you want to do is bring it back to one of our household hazardous waste collection events. In Putnam County, we hold 2 events a year. In the spring, we have an event at Fonsdock State Park, and in the fall, we have an event at the Putnam County Health Department's parking lot. So at those events, you can bring all the items that are listed on your screen. So there are items there such as old gasoline, oven cleaners, heavy chemical cleaners, pesticides, insecticides, items like that. If you have old pool chemicals, you can do that. So
I bring my items. You have them twice a year.
Yes.
So I get all my toxic items, my household hazardous waste items. I bring them to the reclaimed, the place to recycle them. What happens to them after that?
So once you bring them to our collection event, they are separated according to their chemical makeup. And once they're separated, they are brought somewhere to a facility where they're either recycled into a new item or they're disposed of properly. So that's why we want you to bring them to our collection events. So there were some items on that list that we do not accept. One of the first ones on there is latex paint. So even though we accept oil-based paints, latex paint is not really a hazardous waste. So what you can do with your latex paint is dry it out and then put it in the garbage. So if you have a little bit of liquid, it's just like a coating, leave it open in the sun, it'll dry up quickly. If you have a lot, you could put either a paint hardener or you can put kitty litter, sawdust in there, and it will help dry it up. And once it's all dry, you can put it in your garbage. But you want to make sure you leave the lid off so the garbage men know that it's dry and they don't leave it for you on the curb. Another item that was on the list of items that are not acceptable at our hazardous waste collection events are batteries. So there's a few different types of batteries that we have. The first would be a lead acid battery. So that's the type of battery that you find in your car, other types of motor vehicles. So those contain lead. So that's why we want to make sure we're very careful with how we dispose of them, because lead it's toxic. If it gets into the ground, it gets into us, and it's very dangerous for children, pregnant women, because it affects brains. So we have to be very careful with that. So when you buy a new battery, they will recycle it for you. So that the same place that you buy your battery, they'll recycle it. If you buy a battery but you don't return one for recycling, they're actually going to charge you a recycling fee, which will be given back to you once you bring your old one in for recycling. So that's something that you want to make sure you do.
Okay, these are the lead acid type batteries for the cars, for ATVs, for... Okay.
Yes. So those, really big batteries. And then we also have alkaline batteries, which are, the household batteries, just like this. These, in 1996, they started phasing out mercury from these batteries. They changed they purified the other components, the zinc and the manganese oxide that's in the battery. And because it's pure and because there's not a lot of it in here, it's safe enough to throw in the garbage.
So alkaline batteries can get thrown in the trash?
Yes, alkaline batteries get thrown in the trash. So it doesn't matter what size it is. As long as it's alkaline, it can be put in the garbage. Okay, so just a quick aside, we have a few other things in this bag that are, some of it is recyclable, but some of it's not. So like a grocery receipt, even though it's paper, it's printed on, it's a treated paper. So it has a lot of chemicals on it. We don't want this going into the paper recycling. And there's also two different types of bread ties. The plastic bread tie and the wire one. Neither of them are recyclable, so they have to go in your garbage. And the bag that we had everything in is recyclable at the grocery store. But with zip-top baggies like this, you definitely want to make sure they're clean and dry. And you want to take off the hard plastic piece. And this piece gets thrown in the garbage, but it can all be recycled, the rest of it.
So I just cut the top off, the Ziploc portion off, throw that in the trash, and the rest goes to the store to be recycled.
Yes. So we have another type of battery. It's a lithium battery, and it's one of the button types that you find in watches, small items. These are recyclable at the big box stores. So give them a call beforehand to make sure they're still accepting them. But while you're storing these, it's very important while you're storing these to bring them to the big box store for recycling, that you keep these out of the way from children. They're very dangerous if children get a hold of them because, they're small, they like to play with them, sometimes they get swallowed. Once they're swallowed, it can... it's very harmful, because everything is enclosed, everything's tight inside of your body, it completes the charge, so they can get burned, it can perforate through organs, and sometimes you don't know until it's too late, so it's very important to make sure you keep these out of reach while you're waiting to recycle these. So another type of battery that we have that is recyclable is a rechargeable battery. So we have rechargeable batteries here, you just stick them in here and you plug them in the wall and they work.
And this is part of the reduce because we can use this over and over again?
Yes, exactly that. So this is reducing the amount of batteries you have to pull into your home. One battery can be recharged and used up to 2,100 times. That's the specific, it's a lot of batteries. So, this many versus this many batteries that you'll eventually use. But these batteries are even better because they're recyclable. So again, these are recyclable at the big box store. Again, call beforehand just to make sure they still are recycling it. So in Putnam County, the big box store that we have that accepts these right now is the Home Depot, and the Radio Shack in Carmel will take these back also. For now, again, call beforehand.
Okay.
So a lot of the times we have electronics that have batteries in them. So these are old cell phone batteries.
Okay.
These are also recyclable. These go back with the rechargeable batteries at the big box store in the recycling bin. So what about those items that we have that the batteries go into? So we have some old phones here. The best way to get rid of an old phone is to donate it. So if it's still working, you find somebody who can use it. If you don't have a friend or a relative, and if there's nobody that you know who can use it, you can always donate it. There's a lot of places you can donate it to that will give it to domestic violence shelters for those women, or sometimes you can even sell it back.
Yeah. Well, it can be reused because the 911 feature always works.
The 911 feature,
why.
Yes, it always works. Even if you don't have a wireless plan to go with your cell phone, you can always call 911 on these. So that's why.
Right. So you want to do a full wipe on them, take all the information off.
Yes.
And then if it's donated, even if it doesn't have a service plan, you can still use the 911 feature.
Right, and it's not just the flip phones, even the smartphones can be donated and recycled. And if they're really not working, it's completely, you crushed it, it's the screen's cracked, then you can recycle it. The reason why we want to make sure we recycle these items is because on the inside, there's a lot of metal components, and some of these metal pieces, these metal components are hazardous to us. So if they're disposed of improperly, that will, again, leach into the environment and eventually make its way back to us. But there's also some precious metals in here, too. So the metals that we can recycle, the more metals we recycle out of these electronics, is the less metals that we'll have to mine or harvest out of the ground. And that saves us resources, it saves us time and energy to get these new devices to us. So it's important that we want to make sure with electronics is that we try to use them as long as we can, because nowadays a lot of these are kind of throwaway items.
Correct.
We get a new phone, it lasts for 2 years, and we're done with it. But if you know how to fix the phone, try to fix the phone, get it fixed, and then if you can't fix it, then we can recycle it, and that's.
Well, I heard that's even why it's even more important to recycle electronics, because they're not really fixable today. And as you said, then they get so soon they're just obsolete. Mm-hmm. So the amount of electronics that are building up that's not usable, we need to keep it out of the waste stream and into the recycling stream. Right.
It's very important to keep these recycled. And there's also really big, bulky items like those old televisions. Nobody has a big TV anymore. But the really big TVs that have the LED, the CRTs in the back of them, those are very important that we want to make sure we get those recycled properly. Okay. So another item that we have in our homes that sometimes we really don't know what to do with, and we've been told there's ways to use them, to dispose of them, are medications. So we have a couple of medications here. We have just, some pills that have been expired, and that we're not going to use anymore. We had been told to flush them or throw them in the garbage, but we don't want to do that. We want to make sure we dispose of these properly for safety reasons. So the first safety reason is for children and animals and sometimes the elderly. If you have a medication and you're not sure if it's a child can get into it, even with the safety locks, they can get into them, and then they can take them. It can make them sick. It can really do a lot of damage. And same thing for an animal. A dog can chew right through this. I've seen it. So you have to be very careful. So even though we have them and they're not expired and we think they're doing okay in the back of the cabinet.
Okay, so we can't flush them.
Right.
Because that's going to go into the environment.
Right.
And affect everything.
Right.
Okay, we can't throw them in our regular trash. So where do I bring these medications?
So in Putnam County, we have 7 drop boxes, medication drop boxes. There should be a list that will be up on the screen. There's pretty much one in each town. So you can find one. The hours and the locations are listed on the screen, and you can bring your items. Acceptable items include old vitamins, old medications, expired medications, any type of pill you can put in there. Any type of liquid or lotion, we want to make sure that we don't put that in there.
So I can't bring my liquids or lotions to the 7 drop boxes.
Correct.
So how do I dispose of this? Now I'm, a citizen, and I want to do the right thing. So what do I do with my lotions and with my liquids?
So with lotions and liquids, you can bring those to one of 2 collection events that are held at Putnam Hospital. So the health department, along with Communities That Cares, the hospital, and the sheriff's department, they all work together, and we hold these 2 collection events a year. So at those events, we can take liquids, we can take ointments and lotions. The reason why we don't put those in the drop boxes is because they leak. It doesn't matter how tight you seal it, it will leak, and it creates a problem for the person who's picking it up. So at the drop boxes and at the collection events, it's all under the supervision of law enforcement. It's usually the sheriff's department in our county. So that way, any controlled substances like opiates are completely under the purview of the sheriff's department or the other law enforcement. So they go from the bin or the collection event, and then they are brought to an incinerator by the law enforcement to dispose of these properly. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm always interested to where things go. So law enforcement actually will watch the drugs be incinerated to make sure that it is disposed of safely and it doesn't get into the wrong hands.
Right. They bring it to the incinerator, they watch it go in the incinerator, and then they get a certificate of destruction. So we know that these are being disposed of properly in our county.
Okay.
Yeah. So another item that we have, sometimes that we get in the drop boxes that we do not want to have in there, are sharps. So sharps include items like syringes, needles, lancets, any item that you would use, for that. It's dangerous. It's very dangerous for our law enforcement who are emptying the boxes. So we want to make sure that you bring it to one of the 3 collection sites that are in Putnam County. It's Putnam Hospital Center, which is in Carmel. We have Putnam Nursing and Rehab in Holmes. And then there is Putnam Ridge Nursing Home in Brewster. So at those 3 places, call before you go, and you can bring your sharps to them for proper disposal.
Okay. And by law, they have to accept them.
Yes.
But you still need to know the hours of their operation that they will accept them, but they have to accept them by law. If they do not accept them, then they should contact you, and
yes.
you will.
Yes, actually, that goes statewide. So any hospital or nursing home in New York State needs to accept sharps from residents. So you want to make sure you call them beforehand, like you said, to make sure that there's someone there who's able to accept them.
Is there a special way of packaging them before I bring them
Yes.
to these facilities?
Yes. Sometimes when you receive a prescription that has syringes, a short-term prescription, they'll give you what's called a sharps box. Okay. And it's a red box. It has a lid with a small hole, and you could put your needles or your lancets in there. If you don't have one, you can buy one, or you can put them inside of a hard-sided bottle with a very tight-fitting top. So something like a laundry bottle or a bleach bottle. Okay. As long as you put it in there, and then you want to mark that it's a sharps on there, and then you can bring it to one of those facilities for proper disposal. That's the safest way, and that's the only way we want you to do it.
Okay.
So we've talked about some different types of waste that we've had, but we have an item in our home that we usually donate. So is there an item that you normally donate?
Well, I usually take my clothes.
Right.
If it's clean and it's still working, especially my coats, my clothes that I feel that are, still can be used, mm-hmm. I will bring it to a drop box.
Okay,
even my shoes.
That's great. So we want to make sure that we're donating our clothing. But you can actually donate clothes that are not necessarily wearable, but they're still clean and dry and odor-free. So if you have a sock all by itself, we can put those in the drop box, or even a shoe all by itself, as long as it doesn't smell. You could put it in the drop box, or a pair of jeans with a hole in them that we can't fix,
Okay.
or a sweatshirt with a broken zipper.
Okay, so clean, dry, odor-free.
Clean, dry, and
What if it
odor-free.
has stains on it? If I can't get a stain out, because sometimes I stain my clothes and I don't know what to do with it.
Stains are okay, as long as it
okay.
doesn't smell and it's dry. So if you try to wash it to get it out and it doesn't smell, you can put that in the drop box. So there's a list that we can put up on the screen of the items that are acceptable in these drop boxes. Regular clothes that you would have, other textiles like old towels, curtains, tablecloths, things that you wouldn't necessarily think that you could donate if they weren't in the best of shape. You can go to the website that's on the screen to find the closest drop box to your home, because it might not necessarily be in Putnam County, but that's the best way to find out where you can bring these items.
Okay, so I understand I can bring almost all my textiles to a drop box. Now, what happens to the clothes that have holes in it, the zipper doesn't work? I mean, what happens to their clothes?
The clothes that they're not going to be able to either donate or resell are created, they're either recycled into stuffing and other types of textiles, or they're turned into rags. So they definitely have a second life after you're done with them.
Okay.
Yeah. So some other items that you might have in your home that you're not really sure what to do about, that we sometimes can take at our Household Hazardous Waste Day that we talked about earlier. We have fluorescent light bulbs. So fluorescent light bulbs are dangerous because they have mercury in them. And if they break, that mercury can come into the environment, and again, mercury is very toxic to humans. So we want to be very careful with that. So if you have the long tubes, not many people have those anymore, but if you have the long tubes, you could bring that to our Household Hazardous Waste collection event. If you happen to have one of the CFL bulbs, which is also, it's the same type of fluorescent bulb, you can bring that to the Home Depot or another big box store for recycling. So they'll take those, they'll remove the mercury, and they'll recycle the glass. So it's just another avenue to make sure your recycling is properly.
Yeah, I've heard that they've been reducing the amount of mercury in the fluorescent bulb, but it's still there. So if you break a bulb, it actually goes into the atmosphere. You actually should leave the room for at least 15 minutes before you start to clean up.
Right.
Because it is very toxic.
Right. The EPA has, on their website, they have instructions on how to handle a broken bulb. We can very quickly, once it's broken, you leave the room for 15 to 20 minutes, open the windows before you go, let it air out. And once that time has passed, you can go in and you sweep it up into a bag. You seal the bag, and then it goes in the garbage.
Okay.
Yeah. So, as we said earlier, and in our last show, we want to make sure that we reduce everything coming into our homes. We want to make sure we reuse everything, and that what we can't reuse, we recycle. So it's very important that we remember that with almost everything that comes into our home. Thank you, Rob, for coming here today and playing along with me, because I know you know most of this already. So we can go to our website for all of this information. It's at putnamcountyny.gov/green-putnam, and that will get you to all of this information. You could also email us at putnamhealth@putnamcountyny.gov, or you could call us at this phone number, 845-808-1390, and we'll be happy to answer any of your recycling and waste questions. Thank you again, Rob, and thank you for all the volunteers here today at the Carmel Public Access Studio.